remove myself from Austin and everyone and everything that I knew here and move to a different place to hopefully, start my life over, be around better people or better things. But that didn't work. Definitely got around the wrong crowd in Corpus, and I had went around this one dude to buy lean from his connection, and he didn't really like that too much. I went with him to go buy some pills. They had no intentions of selling me any pills. I think the intention was to kill me that night. It was me and like 3 of them. We pulled up into this dark alley and, I was giving them the money. They were supposed to go get me the pills. And the driver, he came around, opened my door and had a shotgun held to my face, right in my face, threw zip tie handcuffs in my lap. He hit me in the face with the barrel of the shotgun, like right here on the nose. And then somebody grabbed me from behind and was choking me. All right, welcome to another episode of the Real Entrepreneur Podcast. The goal of this podcast is to bring you value, show you what we're working on, teach you some lessons that we've learned, hopefully save you some time, energy, and make you some money. Peak turning points that caused me to get sober. So I've been using drugs and drinking pretty much every day from 12, 13 years old till 21, unless I was in jail where I wasn't allowed to, wasn't really possible to use drugs or drink there. And even when I was on probation, maybe I couldn't smoke weed or do other drugs, but I could drink because it'd get out of your system immediately, and I wasn't going to be tested for that. So I was always under the influence. And there becomes a point where after doing this every single day for 10 years, the drugs and the alcohol stop working and you stop getting high. And when drugs and alcohol are basically your solution to everything, and then that solution stops working, it becomes pretty miserable. So, from pills to heroin, then, there were thousands of times that I had promised myself that I was going to get sober and stay sober. I always knew that I was meant for better things than what I was doing, and I always knew that I was going to do great things. So that was always in the back of my mind. I don't think anybody enjoys shooting heroin and living that type of life. So I always, was looking for a way to get out. I was just lost and didn't have another solution. And so when the drugs stop working and you're not even getting high anymore and you're just, doing heroin so that you're no longer sick from the withdrawals, it becomes a pretty miserable place. And I had promised myself thousands of times previously that I was going to get sober and change my life and start living life a different way. But the last time, honestly, no different than the times before, except for the next day when, after I had made myself another promise of getting sober, the next day, instead of doing heroin, I took a whole bunch of pills. Don't really remember that day, but that night I went to, this was August 13th of 2015. I was going to sell somebody some weed or something, and I fell asleep on I-35 and passed out at the wheel and got in a wreck on the highway. And so what stopped this time was, I got arrested again for possession of marijuana. I didn't get hurt, and thankfully the person I hit didn't get hurt. My car was smoking. It was, completely totaled. But anyways, I went to jail, and what happened this time was I didn't get bonded out of jail. I sat in there for 30 days. And this was prior to this, there had never been any discussion ever of going to a treatment center and getting help. But the night before, I had made myself that promise that I was going to get sober. The next day, I got in a car wreck on the highway and got arrested for another possession charge. And when I went to jail this time, no one bonded me out. And so I sat in there for about 30 days or so. And when I did get out of jail, I went straight to a treatment center. And so really it was removing the ability to This last time it was removing the ability to go and do anything else. And I actually had a solution this time. The solution was to go get some help somewhere. Because previously there really wasn't any solutions other than what I was going to do myself to stay sober. And that was it. But like that moment of, disparity where I'm wanting to get sober and change my life was honestly no different than the previous, crises before. It was just this time, went straight to jail, didn't get bonded out, and went straight to a treatment facility and straight to a solution outside of jail. Just myself. I mean, there wasn't really any significant challenges, I was really happy to have found a solution, and I was really happy to have been blessed to be able to go to a treatment center. And I was really grateful for the opportunity that I was given to be there and to work on myself. Because you got to understand, in this treatment center, and thank God I went to this place, which was not like a resort. There wasn't a bunch of counseling and stuff. There wasn't, I don't know, they weren't, it wasn't, feel good, come here, vacation type of stuff. It was essentially like spiritual boot camp. And I'm just really grateful that I went to that place. And so there weren't really many challenges. I was grateful to be there. I was grateful to have this opportunity to be alive and to have this chance, and God had given me this opportunity to turn my life around. Because there's plenty of times where I should have died. I've been shot at. I've been, tied up with zip tie handcuffs and had, shotguns held to my head. I've, probably almost overdosed many times. There's been all the car wrecks that I've been in where I didn't get hurt really. There's been plenty of instances where I should have died or my life could have been taken from me very easily, and it wasn't. And so I was just really grateful to be alive. I was really grateful to have this solution at the treatment center and be around men who were teaching me how to live life. I was really just happy. However, though, the biggest challenge was, letting go of self and working through, how I had been living my life the previous 21 years. Because I essentially had to relearn how to live. I was having to learn how to and internalize and practice principles such as honesty and integrity and selflessness and things like that. Was probably the hardest, just because prior to that, those things were never important to me. But through God's help and through the relationship with God, overcame that. But that was probably it. I mean, the biggest challenge was me and having to kill my old self and have a new self be reborn. There is an instance where I was living in Corpus Christi, such a bad place. Some call it Corpus Crusty. But I was living in Corpus Christi, and the purpose of moving to Corpus Christi was to try and get away from Austin and be around like Matt and some of my other friends who were living there who were going to college and stuff, and just try and, remove myself from Austin and everyone and everything that I knew here and move to a different place to hopefully, start my life over, be around better people or better things. But that didn't work. And when I got to Corpus Christi, I found out that all the drugs that I liked here in Austin were way cheaper in Corpus Christi. And I found out that the drugs that I was selling here in Austin were more expensive in Corpus Christi. So it was better. I could make more money there, and the drugs that I liked were cheaper. So, and more accessible. So I don't even know how I got introduced to a lot of these people or met a lot of these people there, but definitely got around the wrong crowd in Corpus. And long story short, I had went around this one dude to buy lean from his connection, and he didn't really like that too much. And when I don't remember all the specifics, but when I got back, he was there, and he was I went with him to go buy some pills, and they had no intentions of selling me any pills. I don't know what their intentions were fully. I was going through a lot of withdrawals and really just wanted some Xanax, but I think the intention was to kill me that night for going through their connection to buy drugs without them. Because what happened, it was me and like three or four of them in two different cars. Nobody else was with me. But we pulled up into this dark alley. So it was a really nice neighborhood, which was the odd part. Because really nice neighborhoods is not really the place that you want to go and do something like this. But it was in a really nice neighborhood with really big, nice houses. And we pulled up into this dark alley. And, I was giving them the money. They were supposed to go give me the pills. And the driver, he came around and opened my door and had a shotgun held to my face, right in my face, threw zip tie handcuffs in my lap and told me to put them on. I don't remember what I said or what I did, but I didn't put those fucking handcuffs on. And he hit me in the face with the barrel of the shotgun, like right here on the nose. And then somebody grabbed me from behind and was choking me. And there was a struggle in the front seat. I don't know how long it lasted. Felt like for forever. But there was a struggle because I was sitting in the passenger seat and they pulled me over to the driver's seat while I was getting choked from behind. And there was a struggle there. And I didn't have a gun or anything like that on me. And there's a guy with, there's like I said, like three or four of them. They all had guns. And they had told me to get over to the passenger seat after the struggle. I guess we were making noise, like I said, in this really nice neighborhood. But the whole time someone was yelling like, shoot him, whatever. So I think their intention was to kill me that night for going around them. And these guys were all on methamphetamine and different drugs. So it's not like they were thinking clearly necessarily. But anyways, they told me to get, after the struggle, they told me to get over to the passenger seat. So I didn't put those handcuffs on. So I hopped over to the passenger seat and just opened the door and took off. Started running. I couldn't have been running fast. I wasn't in shape at the time. And after that struggle, don't really know. But I took off, opened the passenger door and just ran to the back behind the car and was just running straight. And I was just waiting to get shot in the back while I was running. And I ran, and like I said, really nice neighborhood. They had these tall fences. And I tried to jump up, climb over this fence. And they just peeled off. I couldn't jump the fence. I couldn't pull myself up. But they did a U-turn and were heading straight towards me. And I was just looking at them, standing by this fence. And they just took a left, drove off, and I never saw them again. I mean, family, by fully supporting me going to a facility, helping me get into a facility, helping, pay for sober living when I first got there. So family, just by fully supporting me and, investing into that journey for me. So, that and just supporting what I was doing, them, and then everybody in the recovery community, the people who, told me the truth about my situation, my brothers who I was getting sober with, who I lived with, the people I was able to help. I mean, it was extremely important and extremely helpful. Yeah, I went to the treatment center for 90 days, and that's inpatient treatment, where you can't leave, you don't have a phone, none of that stuff. You're going to the classes and everything every day. And then what I did is I went to the next level of care with them on site at the facility. I think they called it transitions at the time. And basically what that meant was I was allowed to get a job. Because when you're in inpatient treatment, there's no job, no phone, no responsibilities. You're going to classes and things, and you're following the curriculum and program every single day. And so when I went to transitions, that means that you're allowed to get a job. You still live on site at the facility, but you're in a different, area. You are able to have your phone. You have less rules and things that you have to follow versus being an inpatient. So I did that, and I think I stayed there for 30 days, maybe 45 days or so. So all in, I was at the treatment facility for about 120 days. And then from there, I went to, this is in Whitney, Texas, near Lake Whitney, and outside of Waco. And then from there, I went to, they had a sober living house in Fort Worth. And I stayed at that sober living house for about a year and a half or so, maybe closer to a year. And I ended up managing it after a while, after the current manager had left. Yeah, it was really helpful. I loved being there. I mean, it was great. I was with my brothers who I went to treatment with, who I was in transitions with. I was not with new people necessarily. So I was with my brothers that was a part of the same facility. And so it was great. I loved my time that I stayed in sober living. All those guys I would consider really close friends and brothers, and I really, really enjoyed staying there. But it helped out a lot. I mean, you still have rules and things that you have to follow. It was good because, like I said, I was having to relearn how to live my life. And I needed that. I needed structure. I needed accountability. I needed to be around good guys. And again, thank God that the time that I was staying there, it was a really close group of guys, because it's not always that way. And my experience in sober living at that house, I think it's called Ebby's Place in Fort Worth. My experience there at Ebby's Place was great. And that's not the typical, sober living experience necessarily. So it really helped me out. And I loved staying there. Of course, I wanted to move out on my own and get out of sober living. But looking back, I mean, those are some of the best times of my life, was in treatment and in the sober living house, and the time that I spent with all those guys and what I was doing at the time. Being sober is not about avoiding, and being recovered is not about avoiding drugs and alcohol and like living your life in a closet and being a fear about going out in the world, because it's impossible to do that. Number one, alcohol and drugs are everywhere. You literally would have to lock yourself in a closet to protect yourself from temptation and drugs and alcohol. Being recovered and being sober and having a relationship with God means that God gives you the strength and the power to stay sober. And it's not a battle every day. Like, I don't wake up in the mornings, and even back then when I was, newly sober, I didn't wake up in the mornings and like think to myself like, man, I just really hope I can stay sober today. If I can just avoid drugs and alcohol, or if I can avoid somebody talking about whatever, that'd be great. Because what happens is when you form this relationship with God, and this is just my experience, when I formed this relationship with God and I was working on that spiritual relationship and I was doing what I needed to do, the temptation and the obsession to think about drugs and alcohol had been completely removed from me. I was a free man. The chains had been broken of temptation to drink and do drugs. And that's what it's about. It's about, for me, forming that relationship with God, maintaining that relationship with God, and God is what provides the relationship is what provides the freedom. So that was my answer. I have zero desire whatsoever to drink alcohol or do any of the drugs. And here's the thing. This is what I was saying earlier, is that previously drugs and alcohol were my solution, but now there's a spiritual solution. So what I used to go to drugs and alcohol for to provide internal comfort is now what that spiritual relationship with God provides. And so, and there's no better solution than that. So, completely, it's who I am prior to getting sober. And see, that's the thing is it's not about being sober. It's not about not doing drugs and alcohol. It's about a relationship with God. And not doing drugs and alcohol is really just a byproduct of that. How has a relationship with God impacted who I am in personal development and personal growth? Tremendously. I mean, just look at who I was prior and then look at it now. Everything I have is an experience is because of that relationship with God. Otherwise, I'd be dead. I would say to that person that it is 100% possible for you to get sober and stay sober, and it's not a struggle. You don't have to fight every day, and you don't have to be miserable. One of the biggest things that I was afraid of prior to getting sober was I was miserable doing drugs and alcohol, but I was also miserable without drugs and alcohol. So I couldn't imagine a life continuing to do drugs and alcohol, but at the same time, I couldn't imagine a life without it, because I'm miserable in both situations, except at least with one, I've got drugs and alcohol. The other, I didn't prior to having a real solution. And so I'll tell you that it is possible. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And a lot of people get sober and stay sober. But it's not about getting sober and staying sober, because that means nothing ultimately. The real freedom comes through that process, and that's what you're going to experience. And I would encourage you to reach out and take action and get started. You can reach out to me. There's no matter where you're at, there's a lot of resources and places available to help you. And you can get sober and stay sober, and you don't have to live a miserable life anymore. All right. That's the end of the Real Entrepreneur Podcast today. If anybody is out there struggling, reach out to me, to us. We'll help you however we can. And I think that this isn't just about people who are using drugs and alcohol. There's a lot of miserable people out there. And I think that spiritual relationship and a relationship with God can help anyone, no matter what you're going through. It's not just about getting sober. And no matter what you're going through, if you're not happy with where you're at, I would encourage you to take the action and seek some solutions that can help you through that. And we'll see you next week.